At our wedding rehearsal, my future mother-in-law took my hand and said, "Don't get too comfortable. First wives never last in this family." I looked at my fiancé, he just laughed. I laughed too. Then changed the seating chart that night. She found out the next day she wasn't walking down any aisle. She watched from the last row right next to the exit. My name's Nicole. I'm 33. I live in Tacoma, Washington. I've been a third-grade teacher for 9 years. I don't cause problems. I don't look for fights. But what happened with my mother-in-law, Darlene, pushed me further than I thought I could go. And I don't regret what I did. I met Brad 5 years ago. He was quiet, funny in a dry way, and super polite. At first, I thought he was a little too nice. But I came to like it. He worked as a project manager for a local construction firm. Clean cut. Stable. No red flags. That's what I thought. We moved in together after a year and a half. He proposed 2 years later. Simple proposal, at home, with takeout. He knew I didn't want anything showy. That's what I loved about him. He got me. Then I met his mother, Darlene. She came to town the week after we got engaged. She lived out in Puyallup with her third husband, Harold, who owned 3 car dealerships. She wore too much perfume, had a loud voice, and talked over people like it was a sport. The first thing she said when she met me? "Oh, you're the one he's marrying? Not nice to meet you. Not congratulations." That should have been a sign. But I brushed it off. Brad said she had a tough exterior, but a good heart. I tried everything to get along with her. I invited her to brunches, asked for her advice on wedding colors, sent her pictures of my dress options. Every time I reached out, she found a way to turn it into a dig. She once asked me, "Are your parents going to wear their cleaning uniforms to the wedding?" I stared at her, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. I told Brad. He shrugged and said, "That's just how she is." That was his line for everything. She criticized my dress, said our venue looked cheap. She called my maid of honor a welfare Kardashian. And I still tried to keep peace. For Brad. For the wedding. For the idea of family. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was at a little event hall near Ruston Way. We'd decorated it ourselves. Simple table runners, tea light candles, local flowers. It looked perfect. I was talking with the coordinator, checking the processional order. That's when I felt a hand grab mine. It was Darlene. She smiled wide, fake and cold. She leaned close so only I could hear her. "Don't get too comfortable, honey," she whispered. "First wives never last in this family." She winked. I looked her dead in the face. Then I looked over at Brad. He was standing a few feet away, drinking a beer. He heard her. I know he did. He laughed, shook his head like it was nothing. I forced a laugh too, but in my head, something snapped. That night, after everyone went home, I poured myself a glass of cheap white wine and opened the seating chart file on my laptop. I moved her name, Darlene R. From front row, mother of groom, to table 14, back row, near exit the next morning. I printed new place cards. Gave them to the coordinator with a smile. Didn't say a word to Brad. Wedding day came. Everything was beautiful. Bright day, no rain. The music started. The bridesmaids walked. Brad stood at the altar looking calm. Darlene stood up, expecting her walk. The coordinator stopped her, whispered something. Her eyebrows shot up. She looked around, confused, angry. Then she walked, without music, down the side aisle. She found her name on the last row. I saw her jaw tighten. She sat, alone. She wasn't part of the spotlight. She didn't get the mother of the groom treatment. No one stood for her. No special moment. Just the view of everyone's backs. Brad noticed. He leaned in and whispered, "Why is my mom in the back?" I smiled and said, "Guess first wives don't have to follow the rules." He didn't answer. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Darlene wasn't the kind of woman to take humiliation quietly. And Brad? Turns out he was more like her than I thought. After the wedding, things were tense. Real quiet. We flew to Maui for our honeymoon, and I thought maybe we'd get a break from it all. But something felt off with Brad the entire trip. He was cold. Short answers. Looking at his phone a lot. When I asked what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing," or "I'm just tired." 2 days in, I finally asked him directly if he was mad about what happened with his mom. He stared at the ocean and said, "It was disrespectful. She's my mother." I said, "She disrespected me first." Over and over. He didn't deny it. But he didn't defend me either. He said, "She's just old school. She says stuff, but it doesn't mean anything." That's when I knew something was broken. We still had the rest of the week, so I pretended to enjoy myself. Smiled in selfies. Drank my ties. But inside, I felt something rot. When we got back to Washington, it got worse. Darlene started showing up unannounced. Once, I came home from school and found her in our kitchen. She'd let herself in with the spare key Brad had given her for emergencies. She was baking cookies like she lived there. She said, "Brad told me you can't cook, so I figured I'd help out." I asked Brad to talk to her. Set boundaries. He refused. "She's just trying to help," he said. I took the spare key back and changed the locks. Darlene found out and lost it. She sent me a text, "You're lucky Brad puts up with you. You'll never replace me." I showed Brad. He sighed and said, "She didn't mean it like that." That phrase became his excuse for everything. She didn't mean it like that. She's just being herself. It's not worth the fight. Meanwhile, she kept crossing lines. She came to my classroom once, during parent-teacher conferences, just to see what kind of school this is. She asked my principal where she could file a complaint about me. That night, I told Brad I wanted to go low contact. He refused. "She's my mother. She's not going anywhere." That's when I knew I married both of them. A few weeks later, I found out she'd made a fake Facebook profile and was messaging my maid of honor, Anna, pretending to be an old friend from high school. She asked questions about me, what I was like in college, if I ever cheated, if I drank too much, if I ever talked bad about Brad's family. Anna figured it out and sent me screenshots. I confronted Darlene. She didn't deny it. She smiled and said, "I just wanted to know what kind of girl you really are." I told Brad. He said, "She's just protective." Protective? No. It was control. And Brad was fine with it, as long as it wasn't his life being picked apart. Then the final straw hit. I came home early from work one Friday. Brad was in the kitchen. He looked startled. His phone was on the table, screen lit up. A text from Darlene. "Don't forget what we talked about. Nicole doesn't need to know." I picked up the phone before he could grab it. The rest of the texts made my stomach flip. They were planning to open a joint savings account. Without telling me. He was moving some of our shared money into it, just in case Nicole does something crazy. I looked at him and said, "You don't trust me." He said, "I just think we need backup." "You're so emotional lately." I said, "So you run to your mommy to protect your money from your wife?" He said, "Don't call her that." I walked out that night, stayed with Anna, told her everything. That's when she said something I couldn't stop thinking about. She said, "You didn't marry a man. You married a boy who still lives in his mother's shadow." And she was right. But I wasn't done yet. If Darlene thought she could tear me down quietly, she was about to learn I had claws too. I stayed at Anna's for 4 days. Brad didn't come to get me. Didn't even call until day 2. When he did, he asked, "So, are you done being dramatic?" I hung up. Day 3, I met with a lawyer. I wasn't filing anything yet, but I wanted to know my options. We'd been married less than 4 months. Most of our assets were separate, except for a joint account and the condo, which we'd put both names on. Rookie mistake. On day 5, Brad showed up at Anna's with flowers. Cheap ones from Safeway. He knocked. I didn't answer. He texted, "Let's talk." I'm ready to listen. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public. He started by apologizing, but only halfway. "I'm sorry things got out of hand," he said. "I should have set better boundaries with Mom, but you also went nuclear." I stared at him. "You hid money. You told her I was unstable. She was worried. After the wedding thing, she thought you might try to isolate me." I laughed. "You are isolated." Right up her ass. That was when I saw it. He was never going to change. Not really. He was still protecting her. He said he wanted to come home. Said we should go to counseling. I said no. Not yet. I needed time. That night, I started digging. I opened our joint bank account. He hadn't moved just some money. He'd moved most of it. I tracked down the new account. It was under his name and Darlene's. She had full access. I printed every transaction. Then I remembered something else. Harold, Darlene's third husband, was filthy rich, but not exactly discreet. I started searching his name and business records. That's when I found something wild. 2 years ago, Harold's dealerships were sued for rolling back odometers. Big settlement. But during discovery, another name had popped up: Brad's. He wasn't listed as a manager at the time, but he'd worked there. And suddenly I had a theory. Maybe Darlene's loyalty wasn't just about family. Maybe they had secrets. Real ones. I dug deeper. Found an old complaint filed by a customer. They claimed a Bradley R had promised them a newer engine than what they got. Nothing criminal stuck, but it was clear Brad had been involved. I kept everything. Printed it. Saved PDFs. But I needed more. So I baited him. I texted him, "I'm thinking about moving back in. Maybe we can start fresh." He called in minutes, voice full of hope. I said, "One thing, can you talk to your mom? Ask her to back off for real this time." He said yes, that he'd handle it. 2 nights later, I was back in the condo. Darlene didn't know. Brad told her I was thinking about it. I waited a week. Played nice. Cooked dinner. Smiled. Then I did something petty. I took a screenshot of the shared savings account, the one with his and Darlene's names, and I emailed it to Harold. With the subject line, "You might want to ask your wife and stepson where your dealership payout is going." I didn't hear back, but 2 days later, there was a screaming match at Darlene's house. I wasn't there, but Anna's cousin lives 2 doors down. She heard everything through her kitchen window. Then came the fallout. Darlene showed up at our condo. No warning. Banging on the door. Red-faced. "You evil little bitch," she yelled. "You ruined everything." I stood behind the locked door and said, "No, Darlene. I just showed someone the truth." She screamed. Then she spat on our doormat and stormed off. I turned to Brad and said, "Still think she's just misunderstood?" He didn't answer. But it wasn't over. That was just the first fracture. The next one would come from Brad himself. And it would change everything. 2 days after Darlene's blow-up at our door, Brad came home from work early. I was on the couch grading papers. He dropped his keys on the table real slow. He said, "Harold froze my accounts." I looked up. "What?" He pulled out a chair, sat down like he was 80 years old. He said someone sent him evidence that I was helping Mom skim off the dealership funds. She's been moving money around for years. I didn't know all of it, I swear. But now he thinks I was in on it. I didn't say anything. He kept talking. He's divorcing her. Fired her from the dealership board. She's losing everything, and I just lost 30 grand. He's suing me for breach of trust. I looked at him and said, "That's rough." His eyes narrowed. "You did this." I didn't deny it. He stood up, knocked his chair over. "You think you won? You just blew up my life." I stood too. "No. You blew up your life. You picked her. Every time." I was just the one holding up a mirror. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out. 3 hours later, he was at Darlene's house. I know because Anna sent me a photo she drove by on her way home. He was sitting on the porch, head in his hands, while Darlene yelled into a phone. That was the last time I saw either of them in person. I moved out a week later, filed for divorce. We didn't even fight it. He didn't have the energy, and I didn't want the condo anymore. I left it to him, along with the broken pieces. But here's the part one haven't told anyone. 3 months before the wedding, I cheated. It was once, with a coworker. It didn't mean anything, and I never told Brad. It was a mistake. A big one. I felt sick about it for months. Tried to bury it. Justify it. Tell myself it was because I knew Brad wasn't really my person. That I was scared. That Darlene had already poisoned the well. But the truth is, it was on me. And even now, I can't say it didn't play a role in everything that followed. So maybe we both walked into that marriage wearing masks. I thought revenge would feel better. That watching Darlene fall apart would heal something. That taking back power would finally make things right. But it didn't fix me. It didn't change the past. It just ended everything. Now, a year later, I'm back in my own place. It's small. Quiet. I still teach. Still drink my boxed wine. But I don't smile as much. I tell myself I survived. That I got out. But some nights, I lie awake and wonder, what if I'd just walked away instead of fighting? What if I'd left before I turned into someone I didn't recognize? What if we were all just too busy hurting each other to notice we were all already bleeding? I don't miss Brad. And I sure as hell don't miss Darlene. But I miss who I was before I met them. And I hope I never see either of them again. Because if I do, I'm not sure I'd walk away a second time. Not this version of me. Not anymore.